I was actually born in Toronto and moved to Calgary when I was not quite a month old. My dad was transferred and grew up in an average family. You know, father was a sales manager and my mother was a domestic engineer, I'll call her. She was a stay-at-home mom that had a very full plate, was a member of many committees and so on. Growing up, you know, the dynamics, I had an older brother, a younger sister. I was the middle child, bit of a black sheep, bit of a contrarian. I was the one that, you know, my mother and father would claim gave them every gray hair on their head. My memories growing up, for sure my fondest memory was we had an annual camping trip every summer where we would go out west to the Okanagan. We would pull into the campground. We'd drop mom off with her caddy and she'd go in and clean all the washrooms from top to bottom. And the rest of us would go on and set up camp and sit there waiting for mom to come. And the campground actually knew that she was coming and, you know, didn't waste any effort to let her do the heavy lifting. And so her organization and her fastidiousness is something that definitely I was the one that carried those genes. And it led me to be probably the A-type personality that I am today. I mean, my staff will tell you that I don't like anything out of place. I don't like clutter. I like things organized. And that was something growing up that has stuck with me, and any of my friends that know me or my family would always say, "Oh, you're so much like Mom." For those outside the industry, and if you describe to anybody, you know, what I do for a living and how we do it, they immediately think I'm an interior designer. Right down to my parents always thought I was an interior designer. They did not understand the role that there was somebody else who decided that, and somebody who decided what it was going to look like, and then somebody else who actually procured it. And so if you saw a chair and I bought it, naturally people would assume I also decided what it was going to look like, what size it was going to be, what the fabric was going to look like. And so there's always a misconception that we're designers. For those within the industry, I would say the biggest misconception about what we do is that what we do is easy. It's far from it. First of all, from the minutia of items that we buy, there's an abundance of items. The best way to describe to people what we do is if you take a hotel and you turn it upside down and you give it a good shake, everything that falls onto the ground, we actually purchase. When you think of the number of items, both from a furnishings aspect to an operational aspect, there are a lot, and it is not as simple as just writing a purchase order and having something show up. There's a custom element to it that adds a level of expertise that is not easy to come by. And every day as I'm in this industry, I'm learning something new, and it comes from working with great designers, great clients, and great vendors, because the vendors really help us when we're going through and trying to execute somebody's beautiful design, yet knowing that it might not be practical or it might not be operationally smart to do it. How can we achieve that vision and yet still protect the client, the operator, and even the vendor? You know, we have to protect them too from going too far and doing something there that is going to bite us down the road. My biggest rookie mistake was made very early on in my career. We were doing a very iconic hotel. We were working with a wonderful design firm and a designer that we work with to this day. My mistake was this was pre-electronics, so there was no sending a photo electronically, there were no faxes, we had a Gestetner is what we were using that was so big that we couldn't even fit it into Jerry's house, which is where our office was in these early days. And I was ordering fabrics for some chairs, and in those days we used to take a clipping of the fabric and we would put it onto a piece of paper with the label, the specification number, what it went on, and reflective of the direction and side the fabric should go and appear. And I reversed a fabric by mistake. It was a woven fabric, so it looked equally as good both sides, so it didn't raise a flag to the vendor, and they did exactly as I instructed them to do and upholstered all those chairs. Got to site, we were walking our first floor of install, and I was with the designer and the client. The designer was Alexandra Champalamode. As we were walking the floors, she leaned over to me quietly and said, the fabric's interesting, that side. And I said, that side? And she said, well, it was intended to go with the darker side up, but I don't mind it this way. And she never outed me, but to that day, it has stuck in my mind, that level of detail and being so precise on what we do and how important it is. 3 people, living or dead, I'd like to have dinner with. Well, the first I would say would be Warren Buffett. I'm getting at the stage in my life where I'm really going to need to depend on my investments, and I would love to pick his brain for a while, just to see how I'm doing and whether I've got any landmines out there that I might want to walk away from now. And also, I just love his story. I love how simply he lives and how important it is that he invests his time and energy in things that are really important to everyone. The second person would be Coco Chanel. I've loved her story. I've known and read about her from stories about when she was in an orphanage. I remember early on in the 50s, my mother talking about the simplicity of design and how clothing can, the simpler it and more elegant it is, the less people will wonder how much you paid for it if you just stick to classic lines. And the third person is a little bit more personal. That would be my brother Steve, who passed away unexpectedly this past March, and never been sick a day in his life, and went to bed and never woke up. And I'd love to have one more dinner with him, just to say all the things that were left unsaid without that time to do it. Well, the dream I could tell you is that I wake up one day and I've got a client who says to me, procurement fees just aren't where they should be. We think that you should be paid on par with the rest of the primary consultants. And that would be a dream day for me. I joke about it because we understand, our role and what we do, but we love to be at the table and feel like we're equal members. And so that would be a dream day for me, to be told that our fees are too low.